Okay, good morning, girls and boys. Hopefully all of you are doing well this morning and you're ready for our field trip. So I'm excited for today. I know you're excited. Your teachers have been emailing me and texting me, letting me know how
Okay, good morning, girls and boys.
how much you're looking forward to this. Hopefully all of you are doing well this morning. And so welcome to our first virtual field trip, first virtual field trip for me. So this should be fun. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of people, Renee and Miss Anna. I hope I got that right. They're going to be guiding us through today's field trip. Again, we have some of your questions. So as questions come up, write them down. And then there's going to be a moment when you guys are going to be able to ask us some questions, okay? So today we're going to be, I don't want to give too much away, but I know our guiding question is going to be, how can an animal's traits make it easier or harder for it to survive? Okay, so go ahead, Miss Renee, take it away, and let's
All
go
right.
on our virtual field.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing our presentation. So let's see. Oh, I think you have to enable me to start screen sharing.
I'm sorry, I know I have to, let
That's
me do a couple of things. I have to make you a co-host. Sorry, Miss Renee.
That's okay, try now.
And then I have to stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
There we go.
So, okay. So welcome everyone to our virtual field trip of the Los Angeles Zoo. We are really excited to share the zoo with you all because Anna and I both really love that place. So we can't wait to share some of our favorite animals with you. So this is us. We are your tour guides for the day. So we'll just get started by telling you a little bit about who we are and what our jobs are. So again, I'm Renee. And my job title is a curator of education. So that means that I get to work with kids every day. So my main job is taking animals from the zoo. So things like snakes and tortoises and tarantulas, and I get to take them into school. So I might have come to your classroom before, and I get to teach with the animals, and you get to have an up-close experience with them. I also help with things like our zoo camp program. So you can come in the summers and be at the zoo, which is really fun. Anna, you want to tell a little bit about your job?
Yeah, so I work with Renee, and I am in a new position recently with the LA Zoo. And that my title is Curator of Community Conservation. And so my job is to think about all the ways that saving species involves communities and how important that part of it is. And so whether that's on grounds at the zoo with our staff, our employees, or volunteers, it also is about thinking of all of you and how you can help save species in your everyday lives, and here in LA and across the world.
Great. Okay. So now that you know who we are, let's get started with our field trip. So our guiding question for the day is, how can an animal's traits make it easier or harder for it to survive? Now, when Anna and I saw this question, we were really excited because all the animals at the zoo have a lot of really interesting traits that help them survive. I know I love standing at the exhibits, watching the animals use their different traits that they have. But before we get started, we should define what is a trait. So I want you to think about that for a second. When we're talking about animal traits, what does that mean? So a trait is just a special body part that an animal has that helps it survive. So in the zoo world, or when we're talking about animals, we normally call traits adaptations. So an adaptation is a body part that helps an animal survive. So if you just think about that for a second, I know I can think of a few right off the bat. What about like an elephant's trunk is a really great adaptation, or a giraffe's long neck is a really great adaptation. Or if you think about your own bodies, humans have opposable thumbs, which are really great adaptations. These are all things that help make life a little bit easier for us or for the animals. So that's what we're going to be really focusing on today when we meet our special animal friend. And next one is, why is it important to study these traits? A lot of scientists and engineers spend a lot of time looking at animals and studying these adaptations or these traits. But why? For us at the zoo, it's really important so that we can understand what kind of care we need to provide for the animals. It helps us take really good care of them. Sometimes out in the wild, scientists will study these adaptations because it helps them get a better understanding of how they can protect animals in the wild. And it helps us understand how we can take care of the animals at the zoo as well. Okay, now how do they study these adaptations? Scientists will often use these two things, that I notice and I wonder. So they will spend time slowing down and observing the animals, really watching them. I know I love to do that at the different exhibits. Like the meerkats at the zoo are really great to slow down and watch, because at first they might be a little nervous that there's someone watching them. But if you stand there and just really pay attention to them, you'll see them come out and start to dig, or you'll see them go in and out of different, they might go in one hole and pop out of another. So if you just slow down and make observations, you can notice some really interesting things about the animals. And the next one is I wonder. So I wonder is when you stop and ask questions. Asking questions is a really important way for us to help organize our thoughts and really help us, how do I say? Just help us slow down and like really try to understand the animals. So today, we are going to show you a few different clips of our special animal friend. And we want you to practice these I notice and I wonder statements. You can practice them on your own. So we are going to show you the first one. The first video clip is this. So this is the skull of the animal that we're going to meet today. Now, some of you might know what the animal is, and some of you probably don't. So we're gonna play this really quick, and I want you to use your observation skills, make your I notice statements and I wonder statements, and see if you can guess what this is. Okay, ready? Oh, no, that way. Play. There we go. Okay, so that was that video. Anna, do you want to share one thing that you noticed about this?
Yeah, I'd love to. I was just going to ask you what you noticed. So I noticed that this animal had really interesting teeth. They have a lot of teeth, and they're all sharp, and they fit together like scissors.
Very good. One thing that I noticed when I went to open the skull, I noticed how big it was compared to my hand. I mean, my hand is this big, and that skull was much bigger than my hand.
Makes me wonder what they eat.
Yeah? Okay, so we have one more little video clip for you to practice your I notice and I wonders. This is a piece of fur from the animal. So let's see what we can notice about this. Okay, Anna, what did you notice?
Well, I noticed that the hairs are really short, but there's also a lot of them and it looks really smooth. So I wonder if that helps them where they live to stay warm, or does it help them be quicker, or does it, I wonder why that is, why it's short. Or maybe if it's short, I wonder if that keeps them cooler.
Maybe. One thing that I noticed that the furs in this little area were really shiny compared to this. So I wonder if it's the sun hitting the fur that makes it shinier, or what it is on the fur that makes it that shiny. Okay, so now that we've given you a couple of clues about our animal, it's time for the big reveal. Are you ready? If you guessed that it was a sea lion, you were correct. So today we're going to be focusing on California sea lions. So we have some fun, silly videos for you to watch. We have a zookeeper for you to meet. And our first one is we're going to get to take you behind the scenes, so into the back area of the sea lions. And we're going to be meeting with two zookeepers, one named Madison and one named Brian. And they're going to be showing you a little bit about some of the adaptations or the special traits that these animals have. All right, you ready? Here we go. Hi, my name is Renee, and I work in the Learning and Engagement Department here at your Los Angeles Zoo. Today, we are going to be talking about some of the special traits or adaptations that our animals have. In just a few minutes, we're going to get to go behind the scenes and meet with our zookeepers, who are going to tell us a little bit more about the special adaptations that our sea lions have. Okay, so I am here with Madison, one of our sea lion keepers here at the Los Angeles Zoo, and we are going to get to meet our sea lion buddy. So we're going to be talking about some of the special traits that help them survive out in the wild. First thing I noticed is his size. He is very big. Is he good at swimming? Buddy is an excellent swimmer. You can kind of see, like Renee said, he's a really, really big animal, and they mostly get up to 800 pounds. However, they have kind of a air or water dynamic shape, right, that allows him to propel himself in the water very easily. So sea lions spend just as much time in the water foraging as they do sleeping on land. So there's well within the both land and water animals. How cold is the water? So here at your Los Angeles Zoo, we keep our water at 60 degrees. However, sea lions in the wild, they live in temperate or subtropical areas where the water ranges between like 50 and up to 70. So how do they stay warm in the water? So as you can see here, like we mentioned earlier, Buddy is a very large animal, and he has a very thick layer called a blubber layer. That's an entire layer of fat, and that helps him regulate his temperature, as well as warm the water and all that good stuff. I noticed he has those really big whiskers. What are those for? He has those really big whiskers, and we call them the grosses. And those whiskers are actually very sensitive. So the grosses allow him to find food and things like find his way in dark and murky water. And as you can see, Buddy here is actually completely blind. So Buddy is very well adapted to have very sensitive to grosses, and that helps him find his way around his exhibit. That helps him with his later, and that also helps him feel what's going on in front of him. I noticed that Brian is feeding him fish. Is that all they eat? Yeah, so sea lions eat lots of fish
stay underwater for extra long periods of time. And they actually have to consciously make the decision to open their nostrils and go ahead and take in the breath.
So I noticed that in the exhibit, you have two different animals. You have the sea lion, and then there's the seal swimming around. What's the difference?
That is an excellent question. So here in Los Angeles, we have 2 California male sea lions and 3 harbor seals. So as we're looking at Bucky right here, we kind of see that he's standing up on all 4 flippers, and he can go ahead and wash with all of those flippers. So that's one difference. You'll see when you come and visit us that the seals, they do what we call the lump phase, and they'll just push with their front flippers and kind of move like a worm across the land. And then sea lions have this lovely ear flap, so they're technically huge seals. And the wet seals actually just have a hole. So those are really 2 big differences, as well as their size. Seals are much smaller than sea lions.
So thank you, Madison, for telling us a little bit more about Buddy here.
Yay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so you got to see a little bit about Buddy, and you got to meet some of our zookeepers. And there were a lot of really interesting behaviors that you saw happening, and you got to see a lot of the traits or adaptations in action. So now we are going to give you a little bit of time to start thinking about your questions that you want to ask. Maybe it's about the traits, maybe it's something that you noticed or something you're wondering. So you can go ahead and start working on those. And we'll just play this in the background so that you can see some sea lions in the wild swimming.
So teachers, if you can get your students to go on that Google form, and that's where they're going to type in their questions, and they're popping up on my screen. So as your students type them up, they pop up on our screen.
Okay.
So are we ready for some questions, Ms. Renee?
I'm ready, if we're ready.
Okay, so there's a couple that they've already asked, and they go right with the presentation that we're on. So Kelly from Miles Avenue wants to know, how does the size of the flipper on a sea lion help it survive?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So I don't know if you noticed, but in the video, when the sea lions were moving around, I noticed that the front flippers were much bigger than the back ones. So imagine that you are swimming in the water, right? Say you are in a pool, or you're in the ocean and you're swimming. As a human, I think I would use my arms more. So it might be more helpful for me to have the big flippers in the front to help me push the water away. And then as I'm swimming, I also kick my back feet. So you might see that those on the sea lions, maybe they don't need those as much, because as Madison was saying, those ones are the ones that help them steer. So if I have my front flippers to push the water and help guide me through, those back flippers are more just like my steering.
And then Allison, Jaden, Anthony, and Ruby had similar questions about the flippers on a sea lion. Axel Altamirano from Lillian School Street asks, if you do nothing to a sea lion, does it attack?
Oh, well, maybe you saw in that video that we just played that there was someone swimming in the ocean and she had a camera. So sea lions are wild animals. So I think, but they are also very curious. So one of the nicknames that sea lions have is that they're the dogs of the sea. So you might have seen in that video that she was swimming and the sea lions were curious and coming up to her and trying to, I saw their whiskers moving a lot, their vibrissae, so maybe they were coming close to see what she was, because she's a weird creature in the ocean. But like any wild animal, you always have to be careful, because they could attack at any time, and you want to be really careful with any wild animal. So if you see a sea lion in the wild, I wouldn't go up to it. But at the zoo, the zookeepers have a really close relationship with the sea lions. So they work with them every day and they do different training with them. So they have that close relationship, that bond, like you would have with a pet almost, where they're safe with that animal.
And Pablo Garcia from Brooklyn Elementary asks a couple of questions. I don't know if we can answer them both, Pablo. I know we can answer one. So one of his questions is, what is in the alternate universe? And that's one for the ages, Pablo. But your second question, I think you can answer. Why do sea lions have fur?
Oh, that's a good one. Anna, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so sea lions live in the ocean, which means that the water is a lot colder than what our swimming pools feel like sometimes. And that means that they need to stay really warm because most of that time is going to be in the water. So that fur does a couple of things. It helps them to stay warm by all of those. When we looked at the fur, all of those hairs are really, really, really close together. And it helps them to keeps their skin dry. So it can help them stay a little bit drier when they're swimming through the water. It's almost like a waterproofing. And then they also, that fur is really good because we noticed it was shiny and it was smooth and it helps them to move really fast. So you notice it with different animals that are ocean animals, like penguins have feathers that are really, really close together and really, really smooth. Same thing with otters or our sea lion friends and our seals here. They're that really, really compacted fur and really smooth fur helps them be really, really quick.
Thank you. There's a couple of other questions, very similar. Miss Pedrosa from Brooklyn and Eileen asks, have sea lions ever bitten the caretakers?
I don't know. Not that I have heard of, but I know that when you're caring for an animal, that is always something that you part of caring for an animal is creating the space where you both feel safe. So that doesn't happen. Buddy is a great example of an animal who was wild, and we'll learn a little bit more about his story in a little bit, and how our animal keepers worked with him to really establish that relationship. So for any wild animal or anything with a mouth, the rule is it can always bite. And I think that the way that we usually work with our animals is to always positive reinforcement and to always make sure that everybody has their own safe space and feels comfortable.
Thank you. There's a lot of questions pouring in. So how about if we take just one more and then we come back for some more questions afterwards. Students want to know, how does the sea lion make the noise that they make and how do they use it to communicate?
Renee, you want to take that one?
Yeah, they have the vocal cords just like we do. So it's when a sea lion makes a sound, we call it a bark. So they make like a barking sound. So just like how a dog would bark, they can make that same sound. So our sea lion Buddy at the zoo, like we said, he's blind. So to help him get around, he will bark a lot actually, because he can hear the sounds. Since he has to use his other senses because he can't see, he'll use his sense of hearing instead. So he'll bark around. So if you come to the zoo and you hear barking, it's most likely it's Buddy.
All right, thank you, ladies. I guess we'll come back for more questions after. Keep them coming, boys and girls.
Okay, so now our next portion is going to be, why are zoos important? So you got to hear a little bit about Buddy. So we're just going to share a little clip about his story and why the zoo is important for an animal like Buddy. There's that barking.
This is Buddy, an adult male sea lion here at the Los Angeles Zoo. 3 years ago, Buddy was found malnourished, emaciated, and blind on Manhattan Beach. unable to hunt, forage, or defend himself. Thankfully, he was rescued and brought to the Marine Mammal Care Center, Los Angeles, where their veterinary and husbandry staff were able to nurse him back to good health. Due to his injuries and blindness, Buddy was deemed non-releasable, and it was time for him to find a permanent home. That's where your Los Angeles Zoo stepped in and stepped up.
We knew Buddy would be a perfect match for our Sea Life Plus exhibit, and we were excited to have him. And as you can see, he's quickly settled into his new home, bonding with the animal care staff and getting to know his new neighbors. It's hard to imagine Buddy was injured and suffering in the wild just a few years ago. Now at 700 pounds, he is active and healthy, participates in his medical treatment, and is a great ambassador for his species. Animals like Buddy give zoo guests the unique opportunity to learn about a species that is native to their own backyard.
As the new director of conservation at the LA Zoo, I'm deeply committed to saving animals from extinction. The LA Zoo has a long history of conserving biodiversity, and we've been integral to saving species both locally and around the globe. Animal welfare and conservation go hand in hand, and we're absolutely committed to providing the highest levels of animal care for the creatures at the zoo. This would not be possible if it wasn't for your tremendous support.
Buddy is not our first rescued marine mammal here at the zoo, and he certainly won't be our last. His tale has a happy ending because you care enough to support your Los Angeles Zoo. With your help, we go the extra mile for animals everywhere, at the zoo and our local communities and around the globe.
By supporting the Los Angeles Zoo, you're not only helping to impact animals like Buddy, but you're also choosing to take an active role in preserving the world's precious diversity of life. Won't you join us in helping to save threatened and rare species at home and around the globe?
Okay, so that was just a little bit of Buddy's story. So you got to see that in the wild, something happened. So he didn't have his sense of vision. He wasn't doing very well. So that's when a rescue organization came in and helped bring him in, and they helped make him better. So now at the zoo, in order to give all the animals the best care, it really takes a team. So you saw the bond that the zookeepers have. They're the ones that do the training. So here's our zookeeper. They do the training so that they can have these behaviors that help them check on the animals and make sure that their health and well-being is okay. We have veterinarians that come in and do different checks on the animals. You can see here, maybe they're doing a teeth cleaning or they're checking on the animals regularly, just like we all have to go to the doctor, the animals do too. We have someone that does life support. So since the sea lions are in the water, they come and check on the water quality. So that's an interesting career that I didn't know existed before I started working at the zoo. So this one usually a lot of chemists. So if you like chemistry and figuring out problems, that might be a really interesting career for you. And then we have nutritionists. So they are the ones that help create like a meal plan, a special diet for the animal, something that helps make sure that they're getting the right nutrients that they need to be healthy and happy at the zoo. Okay, so we have a few clips here, but I think we're running short on time. So I'm gonna play just this one to show the bond that the keepers have with the animals. You can see that Madison there is asking the sea lion to do different behaviors, but you can see that it's all voluntary. She has this special relationship where she does something called positive reinforcement. So it's like training your dog at home. If you teach your dog to sit, usually when they sit, you give them the treat. So same thing with here. Madison will ask for a behavior, and the behavior, she'll, like right here, she's checking on the body to make sure that everything's okay, that the animal looks healthy, and then she gives him a treat. But his treat is a fish. Okay, so we're gonna skip these for right now. And then should we do another set of questions or go into the next session, Mr. Jimenez?
We can, a few students are curious, can a sea lion get coronavirus? And then what happens when an animal gets sick?
Well, I'm not sure if a sea lion can get coronavirus. Maybe. There has been another story about tiger getting it, but at our zoo, all of the zookeepers wear masks. So you saw in that video when we were close and behind the scenes, we all wear masks because our number one priority is making sure that the animals are healthy and that we stay healthy. So we don't try to take that chance. And what happens when an animal gets sick?
Yes.
We have the vets on site. So they do daily checkups. The keepers will check in on the animals every morning. They do a health check, a wellness check, make sure nothing happened overnight. And if something did, then they can call the veterinarian and the veterinarian will come straight down. Depends on the size of the animal. Sometimes the vet will come to the animal and sometimes the animal can go up to the vet. But something like an elephant, they can't move up there.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about the relationship that our keepers have with our animals is that they know them so well and so closely that if anything is off, they're the first ones to be able to tell if that animal isn't feeling well. Because animals, especially wild animals, as a survival mechanism, usually hide if they're not feeling well.
Got it. Thank you, ladies. I think we can keep going just because we are running short on time.
Okay. So our next section is talking about inspirations from nature. So this is kind of revisiting the why of why we study animal traits. It is something called biomimicry, and biomimicry kind of sounds like a big word, but if you break it down, it's pretty simple. So the word mimic here, if you mimic something, you're copying it. And the word bio right here means life. So this is basically copying life. So biomimicry is when scientists and engineers study animals' traits to help them design products that help human problems. So I have a pretty silly little song here. It is very quick, but I liked it because it gives you good examples. If you pay attention, they'll show you the animal and then they're gonna show you what the humans have designed based on that animal inspiration. Oh no, I missed it. Come back. Okay, ready? It's very silly, I know.
People have problems. Nature can't give us ideas to solve them. Biomimicry.
So look at those wings.
Nature helps you and me.
And there's what we made.
Biomimicry is how nature helps you and me. Plants and animals are great at solving problems. When people have problems, nature can't give us ideas to solve them. Biomimicry is how nature helps you and me. Biomimicry is how nature helps you and me.
Okay. So here is just another quick slide to show you some of the things that we have, some of the inspiration we've taken from animals. So that first picture, you can see the wing of a bird is very similar to the wing of an airplane. So that is definitely biomimicry happening there. The next one is another airplane, but you can see that the fins of the shark are very similar to the way the airplane was designed. Here is another bird and plane happening. And then these are birds. I don't know if anybody's been walking outside before and gotten little pieces of plant stuck to them. So scientists really studied these under microscopes and they figured out how those plants stick to you. And then they made Velcro. So it's pretty interesting, I think. So we did one more silly thing. Yesterday at work, I asked one of my coworkers to dress like a sea lion. So we did a quick little game where I read him a clue and then he had to put on the piece of clothing that went along with that clue. So you can see some of the biomimicry that was happening. Ready? This is our last little clip. Oh, there's me again.
I'm here with our education specialist, Henry, and he is going to help us learn a little bit more about biomimicry. So I have these fun clues that Henry, when I read the clues, he has to put on the piece of clothes that represents the body part of the human. So, Henry, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, ready for the first clue. All right. My thick back jacket keeps me warm in cold water.
So remember how we talked about the sea lion having that thick layer that helps keep them warm?
Have a special layer of blubber that helps keep them warm in the water. And so for us, we would use a wetsuit. Very nice. Okay, next clue. These help you see in the dark and murky waters because they are large and sensitive to light. So what would protect your eyes underwater?
Henry is very silly if you can't tell.
Okay, next clue. These thin, closed slits help me hold my breath underwater. What part helps him stand like a sea lion?
So this one, we didn't have a piece of clothes for him to put on, but he figured it out that it's his nose.
Okay, next clue. My zebraceae are really sensitive and help me find food. Very good. You're doing well so far. Next clue. I use these to help me walk on land and steer when I am swimming. Sea lions have flippers that help them move on land and in water. And the next clue is these help me fly through the water at a 20 miles an hour.
So he's putting on his feet flippers and his front flippers, but I think Henry did it backwards because remember we talked about the size of the flippers, that the feet ones are smaller than the front ones. So.
Flippers that help us swim in water, wetsuit that would keep us warm, and goggles that would protect our eyes. Just like the sea lion.
Okay, so that was a little funny clip for you. So that is pretty much the end of what we have today. So we talked a little bit, we got to see a lot of the really cool traits in action and your questions were really great. And I don't know if we have time for more questions or.
Can we do two more before we close it off? So one is the zoo open right now?
The zoo is not open yet, but hopefully soon. We are waiting for word. We're getting ready for everybody to come back. I know the animals are waiting for people to come back. They are very curious right now. I think they really do miss seeing people.
And several students are asking, how does somebody become a zookeeper?
Oh, that's a great question. It's actually a lot of really hard work. A lot of our zookeepers go to school for things like zoology or biology. They've done a lot of volunteering, so they might work at like a local animal shelter. Once you're in college, there are different volunteer programs that you can participate in where you can actually come and volunteer to be a zookeeper at the zoo. There are special schools where you can go and get volunteer experience, but it really is a lot of really hard work and dedication. You have to really decide that this is something that you want to do and you want to pursue.
I think the other thing I'll add about that is that the cool thing about working in a zoo is that there are so many different kinds of jobs. And from like administration and accounting to working with animals and being a zookeeper to being a veterinarian or being a nutritionist, or educators like Renee and I. So there are so many awesome opportunities to think about if you are looking at careers in zoos. And because of that, so many of the people that work at our zoo or zoos across the world have so many different kinds of backgrounds. We have people at the zoo that have theater backgrounds, drama backgrounds, psychology backgrounds, science backgrounds. You know, there's so many different kinds of skill sets at the zoo. And so that's also really neat.
Well, ladies, I mean, thank you for taking us on this virtual field trip. I can't wait for the zoo to open so I can go meet Buddy in person for myself. That's going to be so cool. And just to share with you, I thought it was only going to be my classes that were going to be here, but apparently we had over 300 third graders here with us.
Wow,
so
that's great.
That's awesome. So thank you. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, students. So girls and boys, keep having fun learning this summer. This is just the first virtual field trip, so we have two more for you.
Okay, and Buddy here wants to say goodbye too.
That's so cool.
There he is. Well, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.